Mark Rogers TV and last word on sports with instant analysis of Alabama's win over Clemson 45-40 to win the national championship for 2015. And I'm going to give you the most unlikely reason why Alabama won the national championship in a game that was 45-40, in which Deshaun Watson threw for 405 yards and Clemson amassed 550 yards of total offense. The reason that Alabama won the national championship is because even in being shredded at times by Deshaun Watson and company, Alabama has the best defense in college football and had the best defense on the field on this night in Arizona when it counted especially. So consider that Eddie Jackson had the interception on Deshaun Watson. That looked like a poor choice, a poor pass, but in fact, Jackson left his coverage area, played the ball, and made an exceptional interception at a time in which Clemson's offense was starting to roll. Take into consideration that Deshaun Watson in 5 consecutive games rushed for over 100 yards against the Alabama defense, 73 yards. He's coming off a game in which he ripped up the Oklahoma Sooners for 145 yards rushing in the ground. They contained Deshaun Watson well enough in this game, held him to 73 yards rushing. Wayne Gallman's a back that is finally getting some recognition, and we saw in the passing game in particular how good he is. But again, coming off a game in which Wayne Gallman ripped up the Sooners for $150 on the ground against Alabama, 14 carries for 45 yards. So they contained, very much so, Wayne Gallman, the Alabama defense. Consider this series in a crucial time of the game, late third quarter. Alabama trailed 24-21 in 3 consecutive Clemson series. They went 5 yards and a punt, 10 yards and a punt, and they converted a field goal and tried to responding to an Alabama touchdown. So the game at that point was Clemson 24-21, but after those 3 successful series by the Crimson Tide defense, Alabama turned a 24-21 deficit and outscored Clemson 17-3 to take a 38-27 lead. Okay, also special teams played into this. That was pretty obvious. 2 huge plays was the decision by Nick Saban to execute the onside kick. He mentioned in many post-game shows the reason why he did it. He did not have confidence in the unit that I just mentioned, the defense. He knew that they were worn out to a certain extent and that Deshaun Watson was having his way, and the Clemson Tigers very difficult to stop at that point in the game. The rush was not getting to Watson like it had in the first half and not playing well at that point. So 24-24, he goes for the onside kick. Saban makes the call based on the status of his defense and his team and the mindset and what he needed to do. He didn't want to just trade scores at that point because Clemson had the upper hand in regards to possessions. So he went for it, and his team executed. They also had Kenyon Drake return that pivotal kickoff with a 31-27 lead to make it 38-27. Drake used his exceptional speed, sucked in the special teams coverage unit for Clemson, which we talked about this week, possibly being an issue for Clemson in this game. And a difference between the two teams is that Clemson, the metrics say, the punt and kickoff coverage has not been extremely good for Clemson this year. It paid the price right here. They had the angle, had those 3 defenders, 3 special teams players, taken the angle on Kenyon Drake, they could have held him to like a 50-yard play. Instead, he goes for 95, breaks their back. It's 38-27. The Clemson defense could not contain the big play. So while Alabama was outgained by about 80 yards in the game, consider this. Alabama had plays of the 95-yarder by Kenyon Drake, and then against the Clemson defense, they had plays of 63, 51, and 50 yards. Those were busted plays. The Derrick Henry touchdown run early, the 2 O.J. Howard plays, the one with a busted coverage, and then also the one in which he took the short pass. He turned the corner. The Clemson defense got sucked into the middle, and against a great athlete, but still a tight end in which a lot of secondary players for Clemson are faster, they couldn't catch him. So they had 3 busted plays. So Alabama, on the other hand, in still giving up 550 yards, only gave up a 39-yarder. That was the longest Clemson play on the night. So the Clemson offense was contained to a certain extent in scoring 40 points. That was the difference in the national championship game. Excellent game, one of the better ones we've seen in recent years, going back to, of course, USC and Texas and the Auburn-Florida State game as well. Nick Saban with 5 national championships total, 4 in Tuscaloosa, and it was just 1 year ago that we heard, following the Ohio State win over Alabama, that Urban Meyer had succeeded. Nick Saban is the best coach in college football. It's foolish to rate coaches based on one game. That does not turn the, pardon the pun, tide. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, it's still a quality discussion. You would have to say at this point that Nick Saban has a decided advantage in the track record against Urban Meyer in comparing coaches. But it was just 1 year ago today that Urban Meyer, in the eyes of most of college football, had succeeded Nick Saban as the best coach in college football. Saban's on the throne, as is Alabama, with its 11th national championship since the poll era started in 1936. Would love to hear what you have to say right here on Mark Rogers TV.